So, hi everyone, welcome back for today's session. And first of all, let's do a quick recap what we did in our previous sessions. So, basically, in our previous sessions, we discussed, or basically, we worked on automation. We worked on automation rules, and what we did, we set up an automation rule in Salesforce, right? So basically, the what was the last topic we did? So the last topic was how do we create a screen component, right? How do we create a screen component? That was the last session we did. How do we set up a screen component, screen flow in Salesforce, right? And then how do we place that screen flow on a home page? So that basically we discussed in our previous sessions. So what's the agenda for today? What are we going to do? Today we'll be going to work on a new functionality. That is a new, basically it's a day-to-day business requirement within an organization, and the functionality which I'm talking about, that is called approval process. Okay, so I'm talking about approval process. What do you mean by approval process, right? What do you mean by approval process? What is an approval process? What's the benefit of using an approval process? So that all will be going to discuss in today's session. Now, when let me give you a couple of scenarios, the business scenarios, and then we'll discuss that what is an approval process. So my question, like for example, you know that whenever we, let's suppose whenever we want to take a vacation, whenever we want to take a leave from the office, I want to take leave from the office, I want to take 1 week off from the office, I have to travel around somewhere, or I need a 1 week off. So now for that, what we need to do, I need to take permission from my manager first. The reason, there might be some important activities, some important operations, some important work to finish it up. So therefore, I need to take a permission from the manager first. Okay, and once the manager approves, once the manager give the permission, then only we can proceed. Then only we can take a then only we can take off, right? That is the first scenario, first requirement. Second requirement, let's second example, actually, you can say, for example, I am a salesperson, I'm a sales executive, and my job is to connect with the customers and try to basically connect with the customers and take orders from them, and send the final quotations and final orders, and take the payment from them and dispatch the product. Basically, I need to generate the orders and everything. That's my job. So let's suppose a customer reach out to me, the customer drop an inquiry about a product. Okay, so the customer drop an inquiry about a product, he is looking for a product, and I share all the required details to him. Now the thing is, the price which I mentioned, now he wants a discount on that price, on the total price. So I already offered a 5% discount to him. I already gave 5% discount to that customer, but he wants more discount. He's saying, no, I can you give me more discount? So let's suppose he is asking for more than 5% discount. Let's suppose he's asking for 10% discount, but you know that sometimes it's not possible for a salesperson to give more discount without permission. So what he'll do then, he will submit a request to the manager, sales manager, and once the sales manager approves, the sales manager says, yes, we can offer a discount, we can offer 10% discount to that customer, then only I will confirm to the customer that you can, like, we can offer you 10% discount. But if the project managers denies that, if the project manager says no, we can't offer you 10%, like if the project manager denies to give more discount what the customer is asking, so then we will basically we will lose that deal, and I will say no to the customer. If the customer is okay with the discount which we have already offered, he will place the order. Otherwise, he will cancel the order. Then he will not place the then he will not make the payments and all. Right. So this is all about this automation. Basically, this all comes under approval process. Okay. Fine. This is the approval process. So these are the scenarios, but in both the cases, we need to take approval first, and it will approved, once it will be approved by the manager, then only we will proceed further. Fine. So this is a scenario of an approval process. Now let's see how do we set up an approval process in our Salesforce org. If we need to if we need to configure an approval process in our Salesforce org, how do we do that? So let's take an example for that. And in order to set up an approval process, what I'm going to do, I am going to take I'm going to use the job application. I'll take an example of job application here in order to explain you the concept of an approval process. And here in job application, the very first step is I am going to add a new field. Okay, so I'm going to quickly add a new custom field on job application object. So fields and relationship, new. And this will be a pick list. Next, I label this as approval status. I set the values here, new, submitted for approval or rejection, approved, rejected. Use the first value as the default one. Next, next, save. So what I did, I placed a new field, and the field is approval status. So what's the objective of this? Let's see. I click on new button, and see approval status will be placed here. Okay, approval status will be placed here. So what is the business requirement? So the business requirement here is that whenever we create a new job application record, okay, whenever we add a new job application record, before we start the interview rounds, or before we start conducting or schedule the interview calls with this candidate, the first thing we need to do is the recruitment team, they will shortlist the profile. Okay, obviously on daily basis, whenever they advertise or whenever they post the job openings on the job portals, they used to get a lot of job applications, they used to get a lot of profiles, and there's a recruitment team, and the job of recruitment team is to shortlist the profiles. That's their job. Okay, their job is to shortlist the profiles. Okay, they shortlist all the profiles, and and they will schedule the interviews only with the profiles which they have shortlisted, right? Only with the profiles which they shortlisted. So That means that whenever a new job application will be added, that job application need to be submitted for approval. So here the shortlisted means we need to submit that application for approval. And if that application is approved by the recruitment team, that means if the recruitment team they shortlist the profile, they go through the profile and they found the profile interesting, what they'll do, they will shortlist the profile. And if they have shortlisted the profile, okay, if they have shortlisted the profile, then okay, so then only the interview rounds, only the interview will be scheduled, otherwise not. So the whole process we want to handle by using an approval process. That means whenever a new job application record will be added, that job application record need to be submitted for approval. Once it is approved, then we proceed further. But if it is rejected by the recruitment team, then we'll not proceed further. We'll stop it there, right? So how are we going to do this? For this, we need to set up an approval process. And in order to configure an approval process in Salesforce, setup home, there's an inbuilt functionality that is called approval process. And this approval process also comes under process automation, right? So I click on approval process, and using this approval process, it is that required information planning before it recommends that the follow the instruction. So we have to use this approval process. Now we need to manage approval process on which object. So in our case, we need to set up an approval process on job application. So therefore, from here I select job application object. Next is there's a button here. When we click on the button, there are two options coming up: the standard setup wizard and the jump start wizard. And the jump start wizard is commonly used. The reason the jump start wizard is it helps to quickly set up an approval process in a easy and faster way. Okay, so the jump start wizard, it helps us to quickly set up an approval process on an object quickly, right? So as you can see the jump start wizard, so we can use jump start wizard in order to set up an approval process in a few short steps. Or if we are okay to follow the long method, then we can go with the standard setup wizard. So we have an option here, the jump start wizard and the standard setup wizard. So I'm going to use here the jumpstart wizard, which is commonly used. So I click on use jumpstart wizard. And when I click on jumpstart wizard, it redirected me to the next page. Right? So here what I need to do, I need to configure this, means I need to set up an approval process here. There are few details which we need to fill. The first is the name. I just write here job application approval process. The next is add the submit for approval button and approval history related list to all jobs application page layout. Because right now you can see when I open a record, there is no option to submit a record for approval. See, if I would like to submit this record for approval, then what I need to do, there is no option available. There is no button available for that. Okay. So as you can see, there is no option to submit this record for approval. We don't have an option. So how do we handle that? So then how do I add a button over here? Also, whenever we submit a record for approval, or we are waiting for the approval, or it is approved or rejected, I want to see the progress. So in related section, I want to add a section here in the related list. I want to add a section which helps us to check whether what's the current progress of this record, whether it is approved or it is rejected. Where are we right now? So we want to check that. So it is not available right now. Reason, So this will help us to do this. See, add the submit for approval button and approval history related list to all application failure. So when we check this, this checkbox will be checked, so it will add a button and the related history here. So it will be placed automatically. Then the next is the criteria, entry criteria. Like whenever, let's suppose a button will be placed here and we are going to, like when we click on a button, a record need to be submitted for approval. But I would like to set a criteria here that the record can only be submitted for approval only if the record is, only if the approval status equals to new. If the approval status is something else other than the new, the record cannot be submitted for approval. I just want to add the criteria, see approval status. If this approval status is new, then only a record can be submitted for approval, otherwise not. So therefore, I just the criteria, and what's the criteria? That if the job application approval status equals to what? Equals to new, then only this can be submitted for approval, otherwise not. This approval status. Fine. Now the last and the most important portion here, that is called select approver. Who will be the approver? So here we have to select the approvers. Who all are the approvers? We need to set the approvers here. Approver means who all can submit, basically who all can not submit, basically who can approve our request. Like when we submit a request, so to whom this request will be submitted. Obviously, we are not going to submit, we will not be going to submit requests to every person in a company, right? So there are certain specifications for that. So therefore, right here, so I say there are 4 options. So first is let the submitter choose the approver manually. That means when I check this box, when I check this option, and whenever a record will be submitted for approval, then what happens? The user, they will get an option, the list of users to whom they would like to submit this record for approval. They can get the options over there. So let the submitter choose the approver manually. That's the first option. The second option is automatically assigned to an approver using a standard hierarchy fields. Normally what happen in a company, that if I would like to submit any request, or if I submit any request, so that request will be submitted to my reporting manager, right? So whoever will be my reporting manager, the request will be automatically submitted to that user. That's right. So the request will be automatically submitted to my manager. So here's an option, hierarchy, and here's I select manager. So whenever a user submit a request, so Salesforce will quickly go and check. Salesforce will quickly check out first that who will be the reporting manager, and then the request will be automatically submitted to that manager. Next is automatically assigned to a queue. You might have experienced that when you submit, like when you try to reach out to the call centers, customer support, or whenever we used to try to connect with the customer support, they used to say that you are in a queue, and as soon as all our executives are busy right now, and as soon as our executives will be free, they will take up your call, or they will answer you. So basically what happened here, there's a queue, and in queue we have a list of supporting members. You can say the customer support member, there's a list of support. Okay, there's a list of customer support members. And what happened, the customers, basically whenever the customer reach out to the call centers, right? So so they reach out to the call centers, and if the executives are busy, so they will be put on a waiting period. And once the executives will be available, they will be free, and the executives, they will connect with the customers. So in same manner, in Salesforce also we can set up a queue. And the last option is automatically assigned to approver. Sometimes what we want is we would like to submit a request to a dedicated person. Okay. So dedicated person, when we say dedicated person, that means, what do you mean by that? Let's say in a company, all the decisions will be taken care by one single person. It's not a very big company, it's a small company, and all the decisions will be taken by a specific user. So then what we can do, we will be using, we can specify that username here. Or let's suppose we have assigned the responsibility of the recruitment to a specific user, right? So we assign that all the job applications will be approved or rejected by or shortlisted by a specific user, and this is the responsibility of this user. So what I can do then, I can specify the name of that user. So I select, and I select the username. So what I did here, I just put my name. That means whoever submitted the record, doesn't matter, XYZ, anyone who submitted the request, anyone who submitted the record for approval, that record will be submitted always to me. I will be the approver. And the final decision will be taken by me only, whether the record should be approved, the job application should be approved or rejected. I'll take care of that. Okay, I'll take care of that. So this we are going to, so I just put my name here, click on save. Okay, so 50% job is done. Approval process, we have 50% approval process we have configured. And once I click on save, see, once it's saving right now, once it is saved, 50% job is done. We'll quickly refresh it and check it out. And you can see we are getting, at least we are getting the option, see, submit for approval button. And if I'll go to related, we can see the approval history related list, which was not coming earlier, but now we are getting these two options. It was not coming earlier, right? But still we have to configure the process, because now when we click on view process detail page, now the actual operation take place. So for example, initially when we, let's suppose a new job application will be added, will be created here. We added a new job application record. Okay, this is a new job application, and candidate number, email ID, okay, candidate number, approval status new, and we will be going to submit this record for approval. Okay, I'll submit this record for approval. So once I submit this record for approval, what will happen to this approval status action? So obviously what we need to do, we need to auto update this. Like once a record will be submitted for approval, this should be changed to submit for approval or rejection. Once it is approved by the manager, we need to change it to approve. And if the manager, basically if the recruitment team or the recruitment manager reject, then this should be changed, this should be set as rejected. So basically these fields need to be updated accordingly. Submitted for approval, rejection, approved or rejected. So these fields need to be updated accordingly. Okay, so all these fields need to be updated accordingly, one by one here. Fine, this one. So I just save this, and once we submit this record, we need to do this. So how do we handle this? For this, we have next step. Now here we have to configure initial submission action. Like whenever we submit a record for approval, then what to do? That if the record is logged, the first step is the record get logged. Record get logged means, and why do we want to log the record? Because once a record will be submitted for approval, we do not want any of the user to do a modification. We don't want any of the user to modify this record. Okay, the record will be logged, but it will be in a waiting period. So this record will get logged, and also I need to change the status to submit for approval or rejection. I want to change it to this. So therefore, here's an option, add new, and we are going to field update. We are going to perform a field update. So I just write here initial submission, and I want to update approval status field and set this field as submit for approval or rejection. Initially, like in the initially when we submit a record, I just modify this, submitted for approval or rejection. Step number 1. Now, once a record will be submitted to the recruitment team or to a user, and that user accept the record, accept that request. But if this request is will be accepted, then what happened? This we need to update to accepted. This one, here's an option. We need to change this to approved. Okay, approved, and the record will be unlocked so that the user they can start giving the reviews. Because if the record will be logged, then no reviews will no reviews can be given. So we want to give reviews. So therefore, the record need to be unlocked. So here you can see when you scroll down in the final approval action, you can see the record is logged. What I need to do, I need to edit and say unlock the record for editing so that we can start giving reviews. And also once it is approved, as I mentioned that I need to update this field. I need to set approval status field need to be update as approved. So therefore, final approval action, and I just say field update, this one, field update, final approval, and I just change this to approval status field and I set this to approved. And in same manner, if the final rejection, if the record is rejected, then what happened? The record will remain locked. See this final rejection, the record will remain locked. And it's now in the final rejection, it says unlock the record. So I say log the record first of all, because if it is logged, basically if it is rejected, if the record is rejected, then we should not be able to give any reviews to this. So therefore I log the record and field update, final rejection, approval status, and change that to rejected. So basically what we did here, we modify this, we updated this final approval, final rejection, and the initial submission action. And now it's time to activate this. As you can see here, for the final approval or final rejection, if you want to send a notification email to the candidate, we can do that. So for that, we have an email alert. Email alert. That is possible. So the way we configure the email template, first of all, we need to configure an email template, and then we need to configure the email alert, and that email alert, both the email alerts will be set here. Once for the approval and once for the rejection. So we can set it here. So you can try that out, the email alert part. I'm going to activate it. Now, in order to test this automation rule, what I'm going to do, I am going to check from the users. So I click on users and I am going to log in as Adit. Then only I can check that. So I just open this in an incognito window, and I believe that you will not be able to see my screen. So let me do one thing. Let me reshare my screen, because I believe that only the first screen is visible. So I just share my entire screen, and now I'm going to log in as Adit in a different browser, in a separate browser. I log in as Adit, and the reason I want to log in as Adit, just to make sure that just to make sure that it is 761920. Yeah, so just to make sure that both the we can work on both the instances simultaneously and test it. So here on job application, see this is Adit instance, and let's suppose Adit added a new record, new job application record. Okay, Adit added a new job application record and the approval status is new. Now let's see who is the owner for this record. Adit is the owner. And now Adit submit this record for approval. See this, a record will be submitted for approval. You can see the status, the status changed, submitted for approval, rejection. And at the same time, if I want to modify the record, let's suppose the record is submitted for approval and it's in a waiting period. We can go to related and we can see the record has submitted for approval by Adit and submitted to Sumit. So it's pending. But still, if I it's waiting for approval, and I try to give a review here. Adit try to add a review. He can't because the record is logged. Even though he is the owner, but still he can't. Because the record will be logged. The record is logged. So if you need to edit, contact your admin. That is the first case. Now, let me show you my instance. What happened here? I received a notification. See that? I received a notification message, and it says open this notification. It will say that this Adit Kumar is requesting approval for the job application. And when I click on this message, when I click on this notification, it will open that record only. That's the job application approval pending, submitted by Adit, actual approval Sumit, assigned to this approval detail for job application 7. If I want to see the detail, I can open this record and check the details one by one. I can click on this and see. I'll go through this and I found that, okay, this is fine. Then I can approve or reject, or I can reassign. Reassign means I can reassign it to someone else, or else I can approve or reject it. Let's suppose I approve this, or if I reject this, then what happened? If I approve, then what happened? I click approve and approve. So what happened then? The record will get approved and the status will change. Right now, right initially when we submitted the record, it was submitted for approval. Now it is approved. And if you go and check the related section, see, submitted and approved. And now if you want to, and the record is unlocked, so that if you want to give any ratings, see, it's accepted. It's accepted. We can add a new reviews. But at the other hand, if any, okay, there is one more job application submitted by the submitted by this user by Adit. Okay, still you can see it is approval status new. I'll just say submit for approval. And also, if it does not meet the criteria, let's suppose the status is not new, it is something else. For example, the job application number 7, Adit is the owner. This application is already approved, and Adit try to submit this record for approval again. So what happened then? It will throw an error. No applicable approval process. Reason: there's a criteria in approval process. We have configured a criteria that it will only accept if the approval status equals to new. And here the approval status is not new, it is approved. So that's why it won't accept, right? But in this case, it is new. So now this time, if I submit this record for approval, see, it's submitted for approval because it meets the criteria. I'll get back, and again I received a notification message, again requesting, and this time when I check the profile, I found this profile is not suitable. So therefore I say no, reject this. I click on reject and I just mark my comments why I'm rejecting this job application. It's an optional field actually, but for the recruiters, they used to mention that why they are rejecting this application, and I finally reject that. Now this application will be rejected. Here you can see, and now when we get back to Adit instance, and you can see the job application will be rejected. Okay, it's rejected. And now still, if he navigate to review and try to give a review, then what happened? Not acceptable. Reason: the record is logged. So if you need to edit, contact your admin. The record is logged, and once the record will be logged, only administrator can do the modification. Only the admin. See, although this job application number 8 is logged, it is rejected and it is logged. But if I want, see, job application number 8, this is my instance and I'm an administrator. So if I want, I can do one thing. I can change this to, let's say I say new again. See this. See, I can modify that. I'm not the owner. Adit is the owner. Still, I can do this. Reason: my profile is an admin profile. So because it's an admin profile, I can do the customizations. This is how the approval process works. Okay, that's a manual job. Now the thing is, the requirement is that whenever a new job application record will be added, we want to automate this process. Automate means as soon as a new job application record will be created, we would like to auto submit this. We would like to auto submit this job application for approval. That is what I want. Okay, that's what I want. So we want to auto submit this for approval. That is our requirement. Correct? That is the requirement. Fine. So how do we do this? How do we automate this process? And for this, we will be going to use flows. So if you remember, We have set up a flow on job application that whenever a new job application record will be created, it was there. Uh, yeah, flow to send an acknowledgement email. This one. So it was flow to send an acknowledgement email to new job application. We have already configured that. So what I want to do here is that whenever a new job application record will be added, okay, whenever we add a new job application record, I would like to submit this record for approval. So how do I do this? Click here. Basically, I'll do one thing. I'll click here and uh, we need to submit for approval. So in flows, we have an option called approval. See, submit for approval action is there. So I select submit for approval action and configure this. Submit current job application for approval. ID, record ID. So record ID with the current record ID. Current record ID. And here I need to select the approval process name. So I don't know the process ID. So either I should check the process. This is a process ID somewhere here. But the best is I'll copy this unique name. I'll copy this unique name and paste it here. So that's my approval process name. So what happened now? Whenever a new job application will be added, it will perform two actions. Number one, it will send an email, acknowledgement email. And number two, it will auto submit the record for approval. So I have configured both the actions. Now let's test it. So let's suppose a new job application will be added by this. A new job application will be added by others, created by this. So I click on new and I click new, position name, candidate number 2, and approval status is new. See, right now I set the approval status as new, but as soon as I click on save, see what happened here. The record will be automatically submitted for approval or rejection. We don't have to do it manually. This is an automation, because otherwise what happened? Hundreds of job applications we have received, but we forget to forward the job applications to submit the record for approval, the job application for approval. So what we did here, we configured this automated, like that's an automation that as soon as a new job application record will be added, it will be auto submit for approval, right? So we don't have to manually run this operation. That's an automated operation, right? And so this record will be submitted for approval automatically in number 9, and this is our job application number 9. So that's how an automation works. So this is how we can use a flows, we can take help of flows in Salesforce in order to submit a record for approval and all. Now the question is it possible to get these get the ID? Because in here in flow, as you can see, is asking the approval process name or ID. Although name is fine, but there are certain, there are some, instead of name, if we have the unique ID, that would be more convenient. Reason, in the name, a small space or capital or small letter, so it's a case sensitive. If anything goes wrong, if I made a very minor mistake, even if I had a dot also, it will stop working. So therefore I prefer to use the ID. But now the question is, how do we get the ID? So in order to do this, in order to get the approval process ID, because we don't have any option here to get the process ID, then let me try with a new like there's an inbuilt concept called, there's an inbuilt concept, not inbuilt concept, there's a tool, actually there's a tool available called Workbench. Basically this tool is very useful in Workbench, and the purpose of this Workbench is to test the operations on Salesforce. So how do we use this Workbench? I visit this URL, workbench.developerforce.com. check this box and click on login with Salesforce. As soon as I click on login with Salesforce, it will automatically log into the same instance. AI Tech AB Corp, this, it will automatically connect to that. Let me show you. I click on login with Salesforce and you can see I logged in successfully, and it automatically connects to that. Allow, and it connects to that. See this here. See, instance AI Tech ABC Corp Dev ed.develop. This is org ID and user ID. We are getting the details. Now, what I want to do, I need to fetch the approval process ID. So how do I do this? From here in queries, we go to SOQL queries. Okay, SOQL queries. And in SOQL queries, here we have to use, here we have to see, do we have an approval process? We don't have. We don't have the approval process. Process automation. I'm looking for approval process. Basically, I'm looking for the approval process. So actually, yeah, here it is, approval process component. There is one approval process, job application. This there is an approval process. Directory name, job application approval process. See, created by ID, and this is the ID for the job. See this. This is the ID for approval process. So the name is this, and the ID is this. That's how we can get this one. So this workbench will help us to do this approval process. So using this, yeah.
Did you click on data and then metadata to get?
No, I click on info. I click on I click on this one, actually the metadata type and components.
Okay.
And from here I select approval process. Then from approval process, it will get a list of all the approval process we have, and then I expand it and see the details.
Okay.
So from here we can copy this ID, and within the flow, instead of the name, we can pass that ID. So that ID I can pass here, this one. I can copy this ID and pass over here. This will be acceptable. So either we have to pass the process name or the approval process ID. Get it? So this is the way we can configure an approval process on Salesforce. That's how this works. Approval process on Salesforce. Clear, everyone? Great. So this is about the approval process, and try this out. So in tomorrow's session,